Alright, fellas. Today, the topic is game modes. In game modes, well, they used to be a thing. Specifically in the fighting game genre. Game modes were there in case someone didn't have others to play with. You had the basic story. Then you had arcade. There was time attack plus in some cases, survival plus in some cases, handicap, teams, it was all there. So why did it go away? The answer isn't something that people like to hear, but as with most things, I am an honest man. I'll give my honest answer, as well as a little anecdotal data to back it up. So why did game modes go the way of the dodo? Well, there were a bunch of suits and... no, sorry. It's not that. Not this time. This time, it was because the people in charge of the game decided they would rather put effort into creating the base fighting game itself and not bother to waste precious time and resources on other modes. I know that sounds like too simple an answer, but in this case, that's it. That's your answer. Here's where that anecdotal data point comes in. You see, a quick search about Harada and Street Fighter V will actually out a little thing that probably flew under the radar. You see, Harada himself realized that due to the backlash of Street Fighter V not launching with an arcade/story mode, that they had to rush a story mode into Tekken 7 because there was nothing for the casual audience. So the question is, how exactly did that happen? Honestly, it was the voice of the pro players, and in some cases, what seems like disdain for the casuals. Not all of them, mind you. But those who keep up with the Tekken community can tell you that certain players will ask for nerfs to be applied to characters that they are either weak against or that simply give them trouble. At the same time, those players will pretend like their mains aren't extremely overpowered. That's a double standard created by listening to pros who make money from the game. Those players want to win tournaments. They want their endorsements. They want the clicks and clips and engagement. Some players would do almost anything to get it. So to please those players, casuals were offered less and less. Game modes went away, replaced with a single mode that is meant to be a cooldown between fights, I suppose. What really went away, though, was the dojo. Not in the training mode aspect. In that aspect, I can honestly say it has gotten better over the years. No, what went away was the area where your ego wasn't smashed into a million pieces by a much higher skilled player. It still happens, of course. Smurf's gonna smurf. But most people aren't interested in repeatedly bashing their head into a wall for the glory of an online ranking system that rewards you simply for existing. So the training room, the dojo, if you will, was removed. The no-pressure skill builder was replaced with Tekken Bowl or Tekken Ball. Two modes that I don't mind, but as you'll see if my cheapos were to be checked, I don't think I've played much, if at all. At the same time, I'm someone who loves survival. I love time attack. I like arcade mode. Team mode is take it or leave it, but if people like it, then I'm not one to say remove it. Rather, I'm a believer in more modes, not less. The reason for this is simple. Sites exist that keep older games alive long after the developers and pros have moved on. People swear to love Tekken 5 DR, but yet they don't compete in the still competitive modes that existed in those games since day one. It's through ruby eyes and rose-colored glasses that people look back on these games. I don't blame them, but I see that most people simply move on to the next game that launches. After all, that's where the competition lives, right? Well, sites like Speedrun and Twin Galaxies have proven that's not completely the case. Sometimes players like myself sub on games that haven't had active competition bases in years. In the last year alone, I revisited Ultimate MVC 3, Tekken 6, Guilty Gear Strive, and others. Some of these games have communities that are still going, like Strive, and others are simply booted up randomly because someone wants to remember the times. This is the same impulse that keeps older games alive. Racing games can live for what seems like forever due to their time trial modes. Burnout, Flat Out, hell, even Crash Bandicoot Racing live on long after their supposed expiration date. Mario Kart, Sonic Cross Worlds, all are currently being actively played on multiple sites. So is driving a big circle or some random shape considered fun to do 20 years later, but returning to a fighting game isn't? Normally people would say that racing games have an infinite replayability. There's always someone trying to beat someone else. In the past year, I've watched and judged games as old as F-Zero on Twin Galaxies. As of writing this, there are multiple different racing games being submitted to. So where are the fighting games? Isn't this about fighting games? Well, yes it is. You don't have to be Knee or Arslan Ash to enjoy Tekken. You don't need to be an old school player to want to boot up and enjoy Street Fighter II Turbo, a game ironically with no modes. There are no restrictions, but to this day, there are people submitting for these games and trying to best their scores, best others' times and completion. And it isn't just that Street Fighter II Turbo is a classic. It's that Turbo has options and different ways to play far beyond what the programmers intended. Tekken 7 and Tekken 8 have none of that. Some people compete in Time Attack for the arcade mode in Tekken 7 or 8, but we've run into a problem where people compete on different platforms, and those platforms aren't all equal. A Time Attack mode would keep things equal. It wouldn't matter if you're a PC nerd like myself, or just someone who plays on a potato. Time Attack would record that time properly, and it doesn't matter if you have an SSD or an HDD, which in and of itself has also become a problem when competing. Yet, if we were to move over to survival, those differences, well, they matter even less. Survival played on either type of those memory drives wouldn't matter. All that would matter is how many victories you managed to rack up. Playing on EMU or original hardware doesn't matter. All that matters is that those victories are real, and the number is real. Should a fighting game focus first and foremost on who is the best in the actual game mode? Of course. And I'm not arguing otherwise. The problem is, though, through a continued and focused effort to remove more and more content while also attempting to Fortnite-ize, I think I just coined a new word, fighting games, well, we moved more and more players out. So in an attempt to fix that, the games themselves became more focused on drawing in casual players, while at the same time removing the things that would keep them playing games when their egos inevitably get crushed. Or perhaps they just don't have the time to learn the game to the level required to be competitive online. Oh, but I know some will say, but Apostle, Tekken 8 currently has casual mode and Tekken Ball, so they're giving the casual something to do. Well, if you believe that, I have many bridges to sell you that are built on foundations of sand. Cheap plug. Casuals don't want to sit and grind against their friends forever. Sometimes, friend groups, do people even have those anymore? Like to sit in front of the TV, pop a few beers, a few buds, or a few Butterfingers, and pass the controller around. There was a time after tournaments in my area fell off that we literally hosted them out of my house. When the tournament was over, we might play a few rounds for fun, and no money on the line, or on the line, or everyone would see who could rack up the highest run on survival, or who could finish Time Attack as quickly as possible. One of my sons got Sonic Cross Worlds Deluxe for his birthday. We spent no less than 3 hours sitting together and playing that game. We're not done. Not for a second. But we ground our way through all but one of the Grand Prix mode, and we're looking forward to time trials. No matter how much we play online, we're lucky enough to be able to crash down on the couch, each of us grab a controller, and jump straight in. When Grand Prix is finished, when all the rivals have been bested and Supersonic is unlocked, we are already looking forward to time trial. We're already looking at something other than the main game. My wife used to play in tournaments with me, and we were lucky enough to be a couple who took first and second in one of those locals. We passed the controller back and forth. We had something outside of the Tekken 6 tournament scene to keep us playing together. Then Tekken 7 came out. No time attack, no time trials, no survival. Tekken Bowl was there, but that was it. Focus solely on the 1v1 and nothing else. Don't like playing online? Too bad. That doesn't work for me, brother. So, inevitably, the controller stopped being passed back and forth. On this channel, we've gone back and, as you've seen, well, we focus a lot on retro games. Why? Because we can still pass the controller back and forth. We can still play as a family, a couple, or alone and have something for the other person who we play with to come back to. Super Mario Bros., Donkey Kong Country, Super Mario World, Super Mario Bros. 3, Mickey Mouse's World of Illusion, DuckTales, Shadow Blasters, Audio Surf 2, Tekken 3, Tekken Tag, Valis, the Phantasm Soldier. The list goes on and on. These games don't have a million modes. Some of them only have score attack or time attack, and in that case, sometimes only when you use live split. Yet just because people will go back and play the nearly infinite amount of games on their Steam backlogs doesn't mean that the thing they want isn't to play what they wanted to play. It doesn't mean that the thing they want to play shouldn't attempt to keep their interest. My sons are not interested in tournament play at all, and that is okay. However, both would be more than willing to play more Tekken if there was more than just versus mode. They don't mind playing, but it's not their core interest, and yet, if there was another mode that they actually enjoyed, we wouldn't be making time to play Tekken. It would be like Cross Worlds. We'd be excited to play. Now, if you think what I'm asking for is unreasonable, then that's fine. Your choices are yours. Any decision that you make of your own free will is your decision, and not I or anyone else should be concerned with it. I can only speak from my own experience. I can only tell you what it was like when I was coming up and how it is now for my boys. I can point out how somewhere along the way, fighting games lost their modes. It's both sad and not shocking. Tekken recently claimed to be going back to basics. By back to basics, they meant nerfing things for characters that people deemed overpowered, making claims that some things were gone across the board when they weren't, but listening to the loud, vocal minority. Content players don't tend to raise their voices or speak out. The internet has long given people a way to amplify their own beliefs and to turn the thought processes into an echo chamber. At the same time, Harada has long been someone who pretends to be something he's not, like right now. People who pay attention know that he's no longer with Bamco, so who will be taking over? Most likely another team who had their hands in the destruction of other franchises. Someone who will, quote-unquote, know better, will be promoted up and told to take the reins, and then when the vocal fans lose their minds, adjustments will be made. The adjustments will come. Look, long ago I worked in retail, and anyone who worked in retail can tell you that the customer is not always right. At the same time, the product itself has to be good enough to withstand the scrutiny that will come to it. People don't talk with glowing, fond memories about Tekken Revolution, but today, things that were brought in through that game have made their way to the main game. At the same time, the energy that could be put into making these games live long past their tournament-specific days has been completely abandoned. By hook or by crook, the bottom line is always the same. Also, for the record, and as an aside, this isn't just a Tekken or Bamco problem. It just appears from someone on the outside looking in that the decision is to try and hang with the cool kids at the top of tournaments, rather than make a long-lasting and fulfilling game experience. Don't get me wrong, Tekken 8 Season 3 was so bad that people went back to Tekken 7, which is ironic because the things they were complaining about were in Tekken 7. The game is broken, X character is overpowered, Y can do TOD combos, touch of death for the great unwashed, etc., etc., etc. Focus on putting in other things for people to do. Focus less on trying to create online hangout spots and battle passes for fighting games. Stop selling people things that were once free. Sell them a worthwhile experience so that 10 years from now, when Tekken 9 is the newest hated version of X, Y, or Z, the people who want to play those games can do so. Look, if I had my way, I'd retroactively add time attack, survival, and team battle to Tekken 7 and Tekken 8. Story is technically arcade, but not really. However, giving players those options would be infinitely smarter than continuing to alter the game before the meta can be locked in, and panic swapping long-term ideas because there was a vocal voice online that scared your investors or the boardroom to death. But what do I know? I'm just a dude using a tiger avatar. Thanks, Breadcat. So I post my musings and thoughts on Tekken and fighting games in general. Also, I am not excited for Kunimitsu.